Good evening and welcome to my channel. In honor of my 1-year anniversary here on YouTube, I thought I would give you my thoughts on the first book that I narrated on my channel, which was The Picture of Dorian Grey by Oscar Wilde. So to start with, I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was really interesting, and it was definitely a book that I continued to think about for a long time after I was done reading it. But let's start with a synopsis. So this book is about Dorian Gray, and in the beginning, he's having his portrait painted. And at some point during the process, he says something along the lines of, if only the painting could continue to age and I could stay young. And he gets his wish. So the painting gets older and he never ages, which I think is a really interesting concept, because even today we are a very youth-obsessed society. We're constantly thinking about age and aging and how to stay looking young longer. And this is interesting because The Picture of Dorian Gray was written in 1890. So over 100 years later, and we're still thinking about these same things. So the picture is also interesting in the sense that it not only ages, but it takes on the negative qualities from Dorian Gray's misdeeds. This is a concept that is fairly common in a lot of media, in books, in movies, where good-looking people are morally good and ugly people are evil. I don't know how this started or why we still think this way, but it continues that in a lot of movies and such, the heroes are portrayed as being very good looking and the villains are usually ugly. We should probably think about changing that. So the first moment that Dorian Gray notices that the picture is changing is after the death of Sybil Vane. So Dorian Gray has this relationship with an actress, Sybil Vane, and he claims to be in love with her and she in love with him. And for some reason, Sybil Vane decides that because she is really in love now, she can't act in the way that she did because it's a farce. And so her acting in this one play is atrocious. And this really puts Dorian Gray off of her. And so he decides that he doesn't want to be with her anymore and that he doesn't love her anymore. And he does this in a very cruel way, like unjustifiably cruel. And unfortunately, Sybil Vane decides to end her life. And this is the moment when the picture starts to take on kind of like a sinister look to it. And it was when Dorian Gray initially notices that there is something odd about this picture. Now, whether Dorian Gray can be entirely blamed for this situation is debatable, because obviously neither one of them was actually in love with the other one. They didn't know each other at all. I mean, Dorian Gray only knew that Sybil Vane was an actress. I don't think he knew anything else about her. And as far as Sybil Vane, I don't even think she knew his name. So she really did not know anything about Dorian Gray. So to think that you could be in love with somebody that you knew absolutely nothing about is absurd. But that being said, Dorian Gray was, again, unjustifiably cruel to her in the way that he ended it. It was just a terrible situation. So the murder of Basil Howard By the way, somebody left a comment on my video noting that I pronounced the name wrong. Apparently, there's a British pronunciation, Basil, and I pronounce it Basil. So I'm probably going to continue to say Basil just because that's what's in my head now and that's how I associate the name. Just know I am saying it wrong. It should be Basil. So Dorian Gray murders Basil Howard. This was shocking. And I remember reading this scene and being like, well, that was just uncalled for. Because here, Basil Howard is like trying to be a good friend. He's like noticing things that are being said about Dorian Gray and that they're not very flattering. And he's like trying to warn his friend that he's getting this reputation and that maybe he should stop doing some of the things he's doing. And Dorian Gray murders him. Really shocking. So there are some things about this book that I have questions about. And one of them is the character of Lord Henry Wotton. And I'm undecided as to whether he's supposed to be bad or if he's just mischievous. He seems to egg Dorian Gray on in a lot of situations. And so I don't know if this is because he's supposed to be like an evil, bad person, or if he just kinds of likes to stir up drama. I'm undecided on that. I'm really not sure about this character. If you have read this book and you have opinions about Henry Wotton, let me know. I am curious what other people think about this character. The other thing that I think about with this book is kind of like what came first, the chicken or the egg. Was Dorian Gray destined to be an evil person? Or did he become an evil person because the painting was taking on those negative qualities, and so he felt he could get away with things? I'm not sure. And it could be that the painting, in a way, made Dorian Gray evil. Because maybe if he felt like he would be taking on those negative qualities, that he would have never done some of the things that he did. That being said, I wish we were given more details on him being a bad, evil person, because they're just kind of like alluded to in the story. And like he's like whispered about and he has like a bad reputation. But other than like the murder of Basil Howard and the situation with Sybil Vane, we don't really see him do anything really horrible. Now, maybe that's by design. Maybe the point was for us to think about it and wonder about it, and that's why we weren't given the details. Maybe that was deliberate. But I just kind of wish that we had a little bit more details as to how he's such like a bad person. But anyway, those are most of my thoughts on The Picture of Dorian Gray. I thought this was like a fantastic book and I highly recommend it. I'm going to link my playlist of The Picture of Dorian Gray in the description box. So feel free to check it out or just read the book on your own, because again, I really enjoyed this book and I thought it was really good. And I think everybody should read it too. So that's all for me. Bye.